Welcome forward once again to Reasonings at the Tree of Life with myself, Jerome Sage Butler, and just the energy of life, love, and divine creative spirit, creative energy. I always want to give thanks to the divine Yahweh, divine Yahshua, divine Christ, the Emperor, the Empress, the divine ancestors. I want to give thanks to you. I want to give thanks to the sun, to clean air, and for the trees, for nature, and for all the creatures that occupy the living cosmos. Currently, I feel more in the mood to be talking about like the self, you know. There have been so much thought, treatises, books, manuscripts written about this self. It is this deep philosophical, spiritual means of identifying the ontological, the most empirical and most sensual defining portion of the human soul, the human psyche. What is the self? Is the self merely the being, the physical organs, limbs, muscles, tissues, blood? Is that the self? Is that only the self? Is the self only the mind, the logos? Is it only the spirit, the pathic bodies? Is it an idea? What is the self? I would say the self is a culmination of all of those, encapsulated in the physical entity, in the experiences engendered through the logos and the interaction of the astral self, the spiritual nature within man. The self has its own awareness, beyond, lots of times beyond the physical knowledge of the individual, or even the mental knowledge of the individual, or even the spiritual knowledge of the individual. So you find that the individual would always have to look inside themselves to find out what is the message of the self saying through all these internal communication modes. Number one, the self exists outside the realms of your manifest being. It is the egg out of which the being manifests. It's the self egg. We have to train the mind, the body, and the spirit to acknowledge the self, to acknowledge that greater is He that is in us than He that is in the world. We have to acknowledge that that which is the essence from which all things came, we have to acknowledge it as such and allow it its expression, its permanence, its permeance, its pervadance of our environment. So the self also involves the physical environment as well too. It involves the astral environment, what we call the out world of outpicturing, the physical world. So it is a training of the mind, a training of the being, your physical being, a training of your astral entity, a training of your spirit. These in tandem allows the self to manifest. Means by which you use might be through the physical, creative, emotional arts. You could be a therapist, you could be a painter, you could be a singer, a dancer. You can also be a teacher. These are means by which the self uses through the logos of the mind, the experience of the being, and the astral presence of the spirit to manifest its deepest felt innermost stirrings. The ontological in man suggests, is it an impetus? Is it an impulse? Where does the true nature of man comes from? Is it from mental activity, spiritual, in tune? Is it from being physically aware, active, proactive? The self sits enthroned in a place without need for acknowledgement, without need for praise, without need for adoration, but in the world of expression, like water into the glass, into the cup of myriad colors, light through the stain glass windows of myriad shades and tones. It fits. The self, it fits perfectly the divergence of form. Yet it is more than formulation. It is formula and formulae. It is the very essence, that which we emerge from. We must train ourselves. We must train the mind to acknowledge the self. We must train the physical being to acknowledge the self. We must train our spirits to acknowledge the self, so that our personal nuances, vibrational fields, our personal likes and dislikes and dictates do not take away from the self's most amazing, most awesome manifestation, which is called I am, which is called you, which is called us, which is called we. We together, we be the self. It's not so personal, is it? It is so impersonal, it is awesome. That is why when a person begins to grow beyond their own self-imposed limitation, they begin to realize that, oh my God, truly, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Greater is he and she that is in me than he and she that is in the world. Then you truly begin to understand, Father God, Mother God, God, Goddess, I am. We begin now to feel it. We begin now to see it and realize that the self is far more than an individual pursuit. It's more than an individual acceptance. It's a collective, cosmic knowing. It's psychic child. It's cosmic baby. It is our way of being. That's the self. Get to know yourself beyond your mental images, your emotional patterns, beyond your physicality, beyond your spirituality, espiritu, beyond the breath, beyond prana. See the self egg, the initiator, the greater within us. This is Jerome Sage Butler, reasoning on issues, topics familiar to all of us. We talk about them. We gleam upon them through literature, through antiquity to the present time, beyond the Gutenberg revolution, beyond the Renaissance, beyond all the postmodernist movement, into the present age. We study, we acknowledge, we look into so many attitudes, thoughts, actions, images, things that we've held on to, things that have followed us through our experience on the planet, on the plane, in the living cosmos. The self is most awesome. We are most awesome. Remember that you are a gift to yourself and everyone else. So continue to experience that gift in yourself and in everyone else. Jerome Sage Butler, once again at the Tree of Life. Celia Media. Follow me also on Facebook, Jerome Sage Butler, and IG, Jerome Sage Butler. Yeah, and we can talk, leave comments. Yeah, let's start an even bigger conversation.